Welcome to our enchanted corner of storytelling, where the rich tapestry of Africa tales comes alive. Join us on the journey through folklore, legends, and myths from the heart of Africa. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for an enticing adventure. Our story today is from Africa's leopard, Congo. In a small village resided a lively young maiden named Nsayi and her widowed father, Bukole, a farmer who traded his crops in the local market. During the rainy season, a storm ravaged the village, destroying herds and crops, leaving Bukole devastated. He had invested all his resources in planting his crops, anticipating a prosperous harvest, only to have everything wiped out by the storm. Desperate, he sought a loan from the wealthy businessman in the village, who agreed but imposed exorbitant interest rates. After 34 months, the interest rates had accumulated to a wholesome amount, causing Bukole incapable of paying his debt. The businessman Bukole was indebted to had threatened him that if he was incapable of paying his debt within 7 days, Bukole's daughter, Nsayi, will be given up for marriage as his third wife so as to repay her father's debt. Unbeknownst to them, Nsayi was involved with Samba, whose affluent background contrasted sharply with Bukole's situation. Samba, deeply in love with Nsayi, arranged to pay for Bukole's debt in exchange for marrying her. Despite Bukole's reluctance, he had no choice but to agree. Nsayi, thrilled to marry Samba, soon became pregnant and gave birth to a son named Masamba. However, Samba's behavior deteriorated after the birth of their son, as he began neglecting and mistreating Nsayi, even bringing other women into their matrimonial home. Despite intermittent displays of affection, Samba's mistreatment continued, leading Nsayi to focus on her child and endure the loneliness of her marriage. Nsayi's father later died of a natural cause. With her father's passing, Nsayi found solace in tending to his farm. Despite the hardships, Nsayi remained steadfast in caring for her child, eventually realizing that Samba will never change. She resolved to raise her child alone, finding comfort in the routines of farm life, even as she grappled with the sadness of her marriage. One night, Samba returned home, intoxicated, while everyone else was asleep. Finding Nsayi in her room, he requested food, and as she hurried to prepare it, he initiated a romantic encounter, whispering sweet words and luring her to his bed. Starved of affection, Nsayi succumbed to his advances. The following day, Samba showed affection towards Nsayi, briefly restoring her hope. Despite this, he failed to come home for dinner, leaving Nsayi alone. Upon waking up the next morning, Nsayi discovered Samba had brought home 2 women as his concubines, leading to a confrontation when Samba dismissed her concerns. Devastated, Nsayi vowed to distance herself from Samba and focus on her child. Many months later, she realized she was pregnant again, spending her days caring for Masamba and her unborn baby. While feeling neglected by Samba, especially during her pregnancies. When she gave birth to their daughter, Zola, Samba was absent, choosing to drink at a local bar instead. Realizing Samba would not change, Nsayi resolved to raise her children alone, though she grappled with loneliness and sadness. Nsayi continuously found solace in tending to her father's farm, seeking distraction from her troubles. One day, the prince was getting married and had a special invite sent to the couple, Samba and Nsayi, to the wedding. Nsayi and Samba indulged in alcohol and upon returning home intoxicated, they conceived their third child. 9 months later, Sayi gave birth to her third child, whom she named Mbazi. Samba refused to sleep in the house, becoming increasingly hostile towards Sayi and ignoring her. His mistreatment escalated to occasional physical abuse. Despite this, Sayi tried to hide Samba's abuse, assuring her children that he was still a good man who loved her despite his actions. Sayi was afraid to admit Samba's true nature to herself. Fearing societal judgment and lacking the resources to leave, she considered fleeing, but worried about her children's care and societal norms, dictating that women should not leave their marriages first. Sayi felt trapped by these thoughts, while Samba, despite his abusive behavior, rose to prominence in the society. Known for his womanizing, violence, and arrogance, particularly towards women, he only acknowledged his male children, grooming them to inherit his success. Mbazi, the second son of Samba, closely resembled his father in ambition and demeanor. Admiring Samba's wealth, power, and influence in the community, Mbazi aimed to emulate him. From a young age, he challenged himself to mirror his father's actions and eagerly contributed innovative ideas to expand the family business. Recognizing Mbazi's potential, Samba appointed him as his heir early on. In contrast, Samba's first son, Samba, harbored deep resentment towards his father, with the exception of his mother and sister. Feeling obligated to care for his mother due to his father's neglect, Samba showed no interest in his father's empire and made no effort to please him. As a girl, Zola was unable to assert herself and vie for her father's empire, despite possibly admiring him due to the lavish lifestyle he provided. Despite Samba's emotional absence, he ensured that his children were treated lavishly. Zola, growing up in opulence, but lacking paternal affection, commanded admiration and fear from those around her. Samba eventually arranged her marriage at the age of 19. Conversely, Samba continuously harbored deep resentment toward his father, detesting even the mention of his name due to his mistreatment of their mother. Samba refused to work for his father and instead pursued his own entrepreneurial endeavors, driven by the desire of independence. Meanwhile, Mbazi successfully managed his father's empire, but before inheriting it fully, he was compelled to marry according to Samba's arrangements. Despite this, Mbazi eventually inherited the empire, cementing his status as a prominent figure in the village. In the meantime, Zola endured physical abuse from her husband, Sako, evident in the bruises when she visited her family. Saddened by this, Sayi wanted to address the issue, but Samba ignored her. Sayi then took matters into her own hands, calling forth a meeting with her son-in-law, Sako, and his family, although she was not permitted to attend the meeting because she was a woman. After the meeting, Samba assured her that the abuse would cease, and strategy struck when Zola had conceived but miscarried again due to her husband's violence. Enraged and grief-stricken, Sayi evoked a riot with local villagers to Nsaku's household that damaged some of his properties. She rescued Zola and took her home with the help of the local herbalists. When Samba learned that what Sayi had done had caused disgrace, shame, and dishonor to his and Nsaku's household, he viciously attacked Sayi, beating her mercilessly, and broke her back. With the help of the maids, Sayi was laid on a mat, since her condition was worse. She wailed for her son Masamba to come help her. Upon Masamba hearing the news of his mother's condition from their maid, he immediately took off to see his mother, bedridden, bruised, injured, and weak. Masamba burst into tears at the sight of her. He tried consoling her as she continuously wailed in a native language. Abonaki nangai, asilisi nangai nasuka, meaning, he has killed me, he has finished me. Masamba managed to put his mom to sleep after the local herbalist administered some treatments on her. He rushed to Nsaku's household to confront him and rescue his sister. Upon getting there, he saw a group of people gathered in a circle at the front of Nsaku's house, shouting and rioting like they had caught a thief and were about to carry out jungle justice. Masamba paved his way through the middle of the crowd with so many questions on his mind. And then he saw Sako sitting on the ground, bruised and injured, obviously from the abuse from the crowd. He called forth silence and demanded to know what was going on. For a brief moment, the crowd stopped, and an elderly woman crying walked up to Masamba and said, "My son, your sister is dead." Masamba froze in shock and fear, stood like a pillar of salt, trying to process such news. Suddenly, the crowd jumped on Saku, calling him Mobomi, 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 meaning killer, killer, killer. Masamba immediately processed what was going on, and with burning rage, charged at Nsaku and planted destructive blows on him until his face was almost unrecognizable. The crowd had to hold Masamba to stop him from finishing Nsaku. After everything, Masamba marched home sorrowfully, pondering how he will break the news of his sister's death to his mother, while the village crowd took over, avenging justice for Zola. That brings us to the end of part 1. Don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, comment down below on the lessons you have learned so far. Don't forget to turn on the notification button for part 2. Stay tuned.